13 Why? Oh, Stephanie Damron's still missing. She didn't just vanish, someone knows something. Part 1.
A teen girl, Stephanie, just 13, is lost in the woods, say her parents. We're getting a lot of conflicting reports. The parents went overnight without reporting their 13-year-old girl was gone. As we all gather together this holiday season, whether it's around a manger scene, a Christmas tree, or a menorah, we're together as a family. Not everyone has that blessing, that luxury to be together during the holidays. Tonight, please help us bring them home for Christmas. People across our country missing, sometimes for days, sometimes for hours, sometimes for years. Won't you help us bring them home for Christmas? Where is Stephanie? It's going to be a cold day in H-E-double-L that I believe a little girl just 13 years old walks into the woods and disappears. Listen.
Despite extensive investigative efforts, including a neighborhood canvass and video search, along with an expansive grid search utilizing canines from Maine Warden Service and Maine State Police, Stephanie is still missing.
Everything is still on the table for us, from her simply being missing to run away to the worst situation, because we don't have any concrete leads or tips that have led us basically in one direction or the other.
I find that very, very hard to believe that there are no concrete leads or tips. First of all, you're hearing from Special FBI Agent in Charge Kimberly Milka from News Center, Maine, then Lieutenant Darren Karn from the Maine State Police. There is a lot going on in this scenario, and to figure out where is Stephanie tonight, you have to go back to the bizarre living conditions where she and 8 other children were living. Have you ever heard of a yurt? Y, yellow, U, Utah, R, Rhode Island, T, Tennessee, a yurt? To Chris Carson joining us, special guest joining us tonight out of New Sweden, Maine, a neighbor of the Stephanie Damron family. Chris, I want to thank you for being with us tonight, because not very many people are willing to speak out. And I think I know why, but I'll get to that in a moment. Now, some of the children, along with the mom and dad, had left the yurt, which has no heating, no air condition, certainly no Wi-Fi. The mom and dad had gone up the street to live in a camper that had heating, water, the works, leaving Stephanie and other children there with the grandpa, no blood relation. So tell me about the yurt that these children were living in.
Originally, when they first moved here, their yurt was built beside the road, 2x4 kind of style looking octagon. And they actually carried it a quarter mile back through their wood cutted road at the time. And then just been adding to it. One of our neighbors, Art, was down in there once, and it was just cardboard and tar paper and stuff like that added onto the sides of this thing. They did have a wood stove on the inside of it to keep it warm, but it was very poor conditions at that time.
I'm just trying to understand how the mom and dad move up the street into a camper offered to them by a friend that has heating and has running water and other amenities, leaving their children behind in a yurt with grandpa, who is not even their blood relative. I don't know where this guy factors in. But how many children, how many people, to the best of your knowledge, Chris Carson, were living in the yurt?
At that time, when the parents moved up, it was just Richard, Stephanie, and Star. So just the 3 of them. But before that, it would have been all of them down. I believe it'd be 7.
Speaking of grandpa, to Christy Rand, volunteer searcher for Stephanie. She knows these woods like the back of her hands by now. Question, Christy, who is grandpa? That would be 80-year-old Richard Turgeon.
Richard is a friend of more than 15 years of Dale's. He helped Dale through a rough patch a long time ago. They became close, bonded. He helped the family to kind of get on their feet, and through some of these moves and transitions, he's followed them from state to state for many years.
Okay, right there, you really got my attention. State to state. Joining me now, Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter. I've done a little research on why they have gone from one state, starting in Texas, to another, to another. Now they've landed way off the grid in Maine. Dave Mack, these 8 children, they don't all belong biologically to Dale Damron, do they?
Actually, Lisa Marie Damron was married at the time she met Dale Damron and had been in an 18-year marriage, and 4 of the children are from that marriage, 4 of the 8 children she has had.
Now, isn't it true, Dave Mack, let's be specific, just before a court hearing where the mom, Elisa now Damron, was to appear, she took off, and she and Dale took the 4 children by the bio dad and left the state. Isn't that true?
That is exactly what the biological father of those children, her first husband, had to say. He said they had an upcoming custody hearing, and she left. She took the kids and took off, and he has not seen them since and didn't know where they were until this story broke.
Well, I just wonder, Brian Fitzgibbons, you're the Director of Operations, USPA Nationwide Security. You lead a team of investigators that go around the world trying to find people. That's your specialty, USPAsecurity.com. Brian, maybe he couldn't find his 4 children because they're living in a yurt in New Sweden, Maine, way off the grid. You heard Chris Carson say you can hardly get up the driveway, such as it is. Let's see a shot of this place. There's no phone, there's no electricity, there's no heating, much less air condition. No wonder he couldn't find his children.
Yeah, and just to give folks some perspective, this is almost 5 hours north of Portland, Maine, and another almost 8 hours north of Boston, up in the northern tip of Maine, by the Canadian border. So this yurt living with no connectivity, no cell phones. This is a very difficult and challenging case for investigators to get any leads or information to track down.
To Christy Rand joining us, a volunteer searcher. She's been out beating the bushes trying to find the then 13-year-old Stephanie, who's just a beautiful little girl. I can't imagine her alone out in that wilderness. I know canines were brought in, and I'm going to get to that, but they didn't pick up her scent, which makes me suspect everybody's story because I trust a dog. Best witness I ever put on the stand, Christy, was a dog. That said, Christy, I'm biased in this case because I've learned that there was another young daughter, now an adult, that ran away as well. And she won't say why she ran away. Isn't that true?
Yes, that's definitely true. Lisa's oldest child would be one of the 8 children being mentioned. She is grown now, lives out of state, obviously is nowhere near where they are in New Sweden, and just wants nothing to do with them.
See, that is, for me, my worst nightmare, that I'm cut off from my children or I'm away from my children. That would be hell to me. People say, what is hell? That would be hell to me. She ran away, and I guarantee you there's a reason why. Because, think about it. Dr. Jeff Kalashevsky is joining us, a renowned forensic psychologist, author of Dark Sides. And you can find him on YouTube, by the way, at Dr. Jeff Kalashevsky, forensic psychologist. It's like relationships. When you break up and you break up and you break up over and over and over, the relationships don't work out. At some point, you have to think, wait a minute. I'm the common denominator. Maybe I have the problem. When you have one child run away, I don't know whose fault that is, but when you start getting more than one child running away, both girls who run away at about the same time in their lives, the parents are the ones, they're the common denominator.
That's true. And the one thing about this case, from what we know already, is that this hopping from state to state, living in a rural area off the grid, My big question is, it sounds like there's a lot of secrets going on in this family or family situation that could be part of the reason why children are running away.
Off dissecting what happened in the past. Why did the other daughter run away? By the same time, Stephanie Damron disappears, walks into the woods, and poof, disappears. That's not true. That is not what happened. I don't know what happened yet, but it ain't that. Let's go to that night. Listen.
After a serious argument about chores, Stephanie goes for a walk. Lisa and Dale Damron are in town on a job interview when Star calls to tell them about the argument and Stephanie running into the woods. It is 3 p.m. and the Damrons think Stephanie will return shortly. As the sun goes down and Stephanie hasn't returned, the Damrons are concerned and take to the woods, calling out for Stephanie. When Stephanie hasn't returned the next morning, the Damrons report her missing.
Let me understand exactly, to Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter, what are they saying happened to Stephanie?
They were not home when this happened, and that Dale was at a job interview, and they got a text from Star saying there'd been an argument, and Stephanie took off. I mean, that's the story that they stick with, but it makes absolutely no sense because of where they're located, Nancy. There's no restaurant in town nearby. There is nothing but open space. So there's no place for her to have just gone and left and without being in the woods. I mean, she'd have been found. It's just impossible.
I asked you what they said, and that is what they said, and I want to follow up on that. You can't just drop a bomb on me and not expect me to react to Chris Carson, Sr., joining us from New Sweden. He's one of the only people with the backbone to speak out about what happened to Stephanie. He's a neighbor of the Damron family. I've got a question. I thought Dale Damron was on disability. What job interview did he say he had?
It was Ruby Tuesdays.
Did he get the job? I'm curious.
Yeah, he says that he did, and he worked there for a little bit, but the boss fired him because of the implications of Stephanie being missing.
So what I'm getting at right now, Chris Carson Sr., is did he really have a job interview that day?
I do not know. No one's actually tried to even confirm that.
Okay, well, okay, that's interesting. No one has tried to confirm it. Even if he did have a job interview that day, and let's just go with that. He did have a job interview that day, and apparently the wife felt she had to go along, and coincidentally, it was then that Stephanie, then 13, disappears into the woods, never to be seen again. Now, here we have Dad, Dale Damron, first explanation as to what happened to his daughter. Listen.
Her sister and her got into an argument. Stephanie, from what I was told, took off through the woods. The trail used to be real prevalent through there, and it would go straight down to where the mud hole was. The kids would go down there, catch tadpoles and everything, and that's what everybody up here assumed she had done, was cut through the woods, went down the trail, down to the mud hole and play. Well, when we came home...
That video from our friends at CBS News, they got home, no Stephanie. So maybe it's just me, Christy Rand, but when I can't find one of my children, I don't know where they are, I immediately try to find them. Okay? Why did they wait until the next day to report her missing?
Well, according to the parents, Stephanie would walk away and kind of burn off steam, do exactly what they're saying, go for a walk, and then return home eventually. So at first, they didn't immediately panic. They, according to them, they assumed that she would return home. I'll never understand why they didn't make a phone call as soon as it got dark. But maybe Stephanie was known to stay out all night, just wandering the woods of New Sweden. I've never heard. Chris would know better. I don't think he'd ever seen Stephanie just walk.
What did you just say, Christy? That this 13-year-old little girl was known for staying in the woods all night?
They say that she was known to go for walks and blow off steam, and for some reason they didn't become alarmed when it got dark.
Well, going for a walk and spending the night in the woods are two very, very different things. To anyone on the panel tonight, has there been a suggestion that she would sleep in the woods at night? I've never heard that till this very moment. Is that true?
I have never heard of that either. That's the first time.
Okay, all right. I never heard that. Maybe that's just someone's speculation. Okay, what does the father, Dale Damron, have to say about not reporting her missing?
Where we live at and the way we live, the first few hours, there was no reason to raise a red flag. So we got the phone calls that she took off up the road, and we figured by the time we get home, she'd be back, and that would be the end of it.
Stephanie still hasn't returned an hour and a half later. Stephanie is very familiar with the woods near their home, and they check all her usual spots, but find no trace of the 13-year-old. The family doesn't think Stephanie would have headed to the main road, but as they walk the half-mile trail leading to the street, Grandpa and some of her siblings remember hearing some kind of vehicle pass by just a few minutes after Stephanie left.
You heard Dale Damron speaking to On Patrol Live. We asked Mr. and Mrs. Damron to join us tonight. They did not want to answer questions about Stephanie's disappearance. Then nighttime falls.
As sunset approaches with no sign of Stephanie, the Damrons become increasingly concerned that Stephanie is no longer in the area. The teen isn't responding to anyone screaming her name, she does not have her own cell phone, and temperatures have dropped more than 10 degrees. First thing in the morning, the Damrons officially report Stephanie missing.
Tell me about the search that then ensued. Of course, law enforcement had lost 24 critical hours by the time Stephanie was reported missing at just 13 years old. Please continue showing photos of Stephanie.